Well, hello, you're welcome to Gmodism. This is your host Eric, or rather, the paper cutout version of me. Very nice. Very useful when I can't be present with you in the office. But anyways, I wanted to test out fire-resistant armor. So here we have a little platform of stone, because stone should be decently fire-resistant. By the way, if you click repair all, you will automatically put out all the fires. Isn't that pretty neat? Anyways, I just chosen this little platform because I had some ideas I wanted to test out. I've kind of thought forever that checkerboard armor would be probably the best against fire resistance, but I actually haven't tried it out yet, so we're gonna do that now. And we're just going to provide the flame on the surface we're having it on, basically. And just to get a sense of how much flame we should have, we're going to look on my Doom Crammy Holy Pyre, which we haven't used on the ship yet. I'm actually considering to put it on the updated version of the Gimle, but I probably won't. Anyways, it has a fire fuel of 600,000 at 40 intensity, with 40,000. No, with 400,000 oxidizer. So this is gonna be my benchmark here. It's pretty funny actually, because this is the hollow point version. So this is specifically made to melt armor, right? This one, because it has 40 intensity. If we look at the regular version of the Holy Power, it has fire fuel of 700,000 and much less oxidizer, and we have a intensity of 30 here. So there are some different stuff we can play around with. Of course, it's made to be able to burn underwater. But I think a big flaming thing should have, like the really high intensity ones, I guess that's not actually the average. I think we're gonna go with 30 intensity for our tests. I think that's the good average. And of course, some materials will be better at higher intensity and some will be better at lower intensity. But having max intensity flamers, I don't think a lot of people are gonna bring that, because you really want, for incendiary damage, really want it to, you know, have enough fuel too. So you want to set it up to be averaging out to do all sorts of good damage. So it's of course better to have higher than 20 intensity, because if we're at 20 intensity, I think that perhaps heavy armor will be pretty good. But anyways, we're going to have 30 intensity and some 500,000 of fire fuel. I think it was ish 20% of oxidizer we need for, was it 20 intensity? I'm not sure, but we're going to have 20% of oxidizer, because that feels like some pretty normal values, right? Alright, so I prepared some different staples or towers here. We're gonna start the fire on the top and it's gonna burn down, because of course direction of fire doesn't matter so much from the depth apparently. So 500,000 of fuel, we have an intensity of 30 and we have an oxidizer of 100,000. So here we have solid metal, solid stone. Gonna be really interesting to see the difference between that. We have some solid heavy armor, some solid wood, some solid alloy, just to see the difference. And then we have the low cost fire resistant material that I kind of believe in, which is the wood and stone checkerboards. Then we have something that should be pretty good lightweight fire resistant armor. That's a little bit more armor than the stone and wood, which is of course the alloy and stone, because the alloy has a bit of a flammability. And then we have the old metal wood checkerboard used on the Draconia, for example, and the Ragnarok by Brenzo for comparison. In any case, of course, these towers have different cost, and everything needs to be compared to the relative cost of the thing. But of course, you can see here flammability of wood is 80% with a fire resistance of 10. This is going to burn really easily. Stone has a flammability of 0% and has a fire resistance of 50, which makes this one of the best fire resistant blocks here. And then we have lightweight alloy has a flammability of 20% and a fire resistant of 50. So it has the same fire resistance as stone, but it also has a flammability, which means it will provide fuel for the flames, which ain't good. Then we have metal, which has a flammability of 0% and fire resistant of 40, which is similar to the stone, but you can see that this one costs 5 materials per block, this one costs 2. Yeah. Actually, I think stone hasn't stone become cheaper? I thought it cost... No, maybe I just misremember, whatever. Stone is at least like very, very cheap, you know? And then we have heavy armor, which has a flammability of 25% and a fire resistant of 60. Now, heavy armor have a lot of health, but that also means a lot of fuel for the fire. Anyways, that's the stats behind reinforced wood. Nobody should use that except for aesthetical reasons. If you want to have a wooden deck, have one layer of wood and one layer of metal underneath it. But that's for another video. Let's set these on fire. We're gonna start there. There. Come on. And there. And there. And there. And there. All right. So the wooden one is of course burning down very quickly. And you can see the... Oh, actually this is burning a little bit quicker than I would have anticipated. We might have too much fuel on this test. That is possible. It's interesting to see nonetheless. We can see the wood one has now reached the bottom. And you can see stuff is actually not burning as quick as you might imagine them should be burning. So that's pretty funny. And then you can see here, do we have there? Well, it's very interesting to check around these different towers burning down here. So here you can see there, it's down, and this one, okay. And the wood, oh, the wood, damn, the wood stone checkerboards burn down quicker than the metal wood checkerboards. I wouldn't have expected that actually. So my theory of the wood stone checkerboards being a good fire resistant material is not true here. The complete stone one has burned down now as well. So we can see that even though stone is pretty fire resistant, the alloy one is actually burning slower. Anyways, now they're kind of melting into the same flame, so that's not very... Whoops. Repair all. Alright. Weird stuff happened there. Well, that's some very interesting result to see, to be honest. So, stone isn't as fire resistant as I may have hoped. We're going to just try these checkerboards one a little bit here. See what happens. We can have the pure stone and the pure metal as a reference behind there. You can see the fire is spreading very quickly into the armor here. The fire spreads from blocks destroyed, so it shouldn't be able to climb on the outside like it's visually doing. But the very undense health points for this type of material just makes it so that it kind of climbs down here. Now, of course, this is a fire with extreme amounts of fuel. This is a Doom level of stuff. So the added... I'm just realizing that the added fuel from the blocks may not at all be very relevant here. Indeed. I think we need to... fire resistance for armor is probably only relevant for the less Doom type of scenarios, where we perhaps have a flame fuel value of 50,000, something like that. And an oxidizer, or can I have a tiny bit of oxidizer here? 25,000 is not a tiny bit, but it should be good. So we're going to restart this test here, just because I think that like what we tested wasn't relevant. This was too much fuel, so the added fuel from the blocks didn't actually matter very much. Alright, time has passed a minute or so, so now we can clearly see some better differences here. We can see this one is indeed burning, and you can see they are actually getting out of flames here. This stone alloy checkerboard has a fuel of only like, oh, it's actually dying out. Look at that. Fuel is dying out. Very interesting indeed. This one has already died out. The alloy one didn't burn through more than that. So even though alloy is flammable, it's honestly not as flammable as one would have anticipated. Look at that. It only burned a little bit longer than metal, and that might actually be just from the health point difference, that, you know, metal has more health points. So that's very interesting. And but what is interesting here is that you can see that oh, just look at this one here. You can see it has 36,000 fuel. So this wooden stack has been just providing it more and more fuel. That's very interesting. Anyways, you can see that the stone and the metal one are very equal in terms of how far they burned. But do remember that this one is actually half as less than half as expensive as this one. So this is some really good results for the stone there. Heavy armor hasn't burned very far at all. It seems that heavy armor is indeed a very good protector against flames. I honestly think that they should make... I think they should add more stuff like more materials to the fire when it creates it like that. Because I think that heavy armor needs a disadvantage also than weight and cost. I also feel that it should be a little bit more flammable. Anyways, now we can check this here. That's a really interesting. You can see that the wood and stone checkerboard's armor is indeed pretty good at defending, because again, this is so much more expensive than this one, so it didn't burn very through. But I must say that the alloy and stone checkerboard, you can see it did slightly better than alloy and slightly worse than stone. Would have been pretty expected. So that's definitely a viable option, but I'm not sure how much different it makes. It probably doesn't defend the checkerboard pattern per se. I don't think it really matters much. You can see that even though it burned away a good bit, the stone has a protective element, of course, to it. But when you see to the difference to pure alloy, the difference is so small you can't really defend putting in the time to make a checkerboard pattern here. But of course, pure wood like this is gonna burn down completely. And pure stone like this is not gonna burn very far at all. So if you want to make that stone a little bit lighter, I could actually say that wood and stone checkerboard ain't bad. Now, we wanted a checkerboard to prevent a kind of spreading of the flames in a way. But if we're going to be completely real here, I think that the flame, dependent on how you build your ship, the flame might not spread as far as you might expect it to. So we can probably just do layers like this. The problems if we do layers like this, you could see this entire stack burning down like that. So you have to think about the connecting surfaces, just like EMP. if you have a wooden lining in your ship, so one of your lines around the whole ship is wood, then you might need to break it up with some checkerboard's pattern, because if it starts burning, that entire layer may burn down if you are unlucky, you know. But I do think that the likelihood of that fire spreading around the ship is pretty low. But we're going to do a little test of that. So if we just simulate a layer like this, it's gonna be out here. We're just gonna have some different layers. We're just gonna try it out and see what happens here. If we start a fire kinda up here, will it spread out and delete that entire layer? Because this will give us the results if checkerboard is worth it or not. We can see that stone and metal checkerboard, no, I mean wood and metal checkerboard, that's actually pretty interesting. Metal and wood checkerboard has very similar results to stone and wood checkerboard, with stone and wood checkerboard having the material advantage. I think actually stone and wood checkerboard is a pretty decent, low-cost, high-bulk kinetic armor. And having a checkerboard doesn't matter very much. It might as well be layers, because when we're providing gaps like this, if something gets deleted like that and an explosive force gets stuck in this space, it might actually cause the explosion to become worse. So basically, from the depth, explosions get a little better boost when they are in enclosed spaces like that. So here you can see the flame did not progress through the entire layer. So having wood and stone layers should be as good as having stone and wood checkerboard. So I think we can definitely say that the checkerboard pattern doesn't provide any real advantages to layers. Not even after the flame update here. The only advantage it has is if you want to spread out the materials a little bit more. But you get the cross-accepted armor stacking values as well with layers as with checkerboards, and you avoid the boost to explosive damages in tight spaces that the checkerboard, that's the checkerboard's biggest weakness. But very interesting to try. So my conclusions are that wood and stone checkerboard is not worth the time, but wood and stone layers is definitely a good way to protect against flames. Even though checkerboard is of course bad if you like the aesthetics of it, I think it looks pretty cool sometimes. But from a technical standpoint, it doesn't provide a lot of benefits there. Now, alloy is not at all as flammable as I would have expected it to be, so that's cool to know. We're gonna check what happens if we kind of have a little bit more than like 500, you know? If I mean 50,000, let's say we have 100,000, but we have an intensity of like one of the highest intensities you can get. I think it's, I don't know if you can get up to intensity to 100, but I think you can get up to intensity 80 pretty easily with the flamers, you know. We're gonna have oxidizer for this. We're probably gonna have a little bit more than 50,000. So let's start the test with high intensity. What happens when the intensity is off the charts? But that's gonna mean that it burns quicker. So that's interesting. You can see like stuff is going so quickly when we have a higher intensity flame going on there. We can see that the pure stone one is burning about as quickly as the pure wood one. And that's of course because the intensity is far beyond the fire resistance of the material. We can see if we just go in here, you can see the fire resistance of heavy armor is 60. So, you know, it's just burning through everything here very easily. For some reason, why does... Okay, this has so much more fuel left, okay. So the fuel on the stone was almost depleted. But here you can see when we come to a bigger, scarier flame like this, the fire resistance, like above 60, the fire resistance doesn't really matter. It's just gonna burn really quick. But you can see the wood one has actually compounded a lot of materials. It now has a fuel of 50,000, 56,000, and the stone one is dead. The metal one has died too, and that's of course because the metal one has more health points than the stone one. But the stone one being, you know, less than half of the cost. So basically, if this stone pillar was 2 point whatever times as tall as this one, of course, the stone, you might not see it when you're looking at it like this, but the stone did a lot better than the metal. Just so you know, the stone did a lot better than the metal in the stack here. You can see that because it's like more than half of the stack has been burning down. So yeah, because we always measure things against health points. In any case, here we had these pillars. Here we have a fuel, it's gonna burn down there. This has a big fire going on, but with a fuel of 400,000. Right. It goes so quickly, so it can be a little bit hard to see. Again, at this point, I feel like this is a little bit confusing. Okay. Again, I do think that over the intensity of 60, like everything is gonna burn, and it's gonna burn pretty fast. So if you have slightly less of fuel, just to make it sure it doesn't burn down to the ground, like we go back to 50,000 but higher intensity, we can see what's happening there. And the stone and wood, it's like the fire destroys blocks. So X amount of fuel is spent to destroy X amount of you know, materials. That's kind of how it works. And some materials give it back, and some don't give back materials. So the ones that are flammable will give things back to the flame. You can see this one is burning pretty quickly. Actually, about as quickly as pure wood. So that's probably why pure wood isn't that bad. This one of course gives a little bit of material to the flame, but we're gonna see when it burns down that this one is gonna stop kind of just above there, I think. The metal one has stopped burning here, the stone one too. The stone, because of the cost, the stone protected itself really well here. Really stopped those flames pretty easily. I definitely think that a double layer of stone or something like that should be a pretty good protection against flames. And you can see that alloy isn't bad, of course, but if you want to mix in the alloy with some stone, that can be cool too. If you want to have the buffed armor, doesn't have to be checkerboard, of course. Layering works as well. But this is what we wanted to test a little bit today. But basically, there is one armor that's better than any other when it comes to fire resistance, and that's of course air. If you have an air gap, it's gonna be great. Water is also a fantastic anti-flame thing, because if we just take this platform down, I'm just gonna show you, if in case you didn't know that. We're just gonna take this platform and take it down. Do a quick little repair here. Oxidizer helps it burn underwater, by the way. But we're gonna have really scary flames here with crazy intensity. We're gonna start them all over the place, on all of the pillars. And we're just going to take it down here. So with Oxidizer, it will actually provide some flames. So here we go. Now we're out underwater. You can see the oxidizer quickly runs out. So basically, when it comes to protecting yourself against fires, you want to have everything. If you're using a naval target, you want to have everything that should not be able to take any flame underwater. All the flammable blocks should be underwater. You can see a lot of blocks have a good bit of flammability. I actually thought missile blocks had that. Crams don't, but they don't... Oh! Crams are flammable. Oh, damn. So different blocks have different flammability. A lot of the system blocks are flammable. Have them underwater if you can. Having a layer of stone is a good protection. Layered stone and wood is great for both fire protection and health point tanking. So if you have the bulk, that's not a bad tactic. And alloy and metal is not as bad as one... I mean metal and... no, now I'm saying it reversed. Alloy and heavy armor is not as bad as one might have imagined they would be. But here we can see, by the way, here we can see it burns until the oxidizer runs out. So if we, for example, have one with equal oxidizer and equal fuel, we can see that we actually cause some pretty scary flames here. They will be able to burn underwater. And at this point, heavy armor can be burnt away. Not too difficultly. And that's pretty interesting. If you want to set heavy armor on fire, you probably need to bring more oxidizer than fuel. Not only because at higher intensities you need more oxidizer than at lower intensities, but also because the heavy armor will actually provide more fuel to the flame as it goes, until the oxidizer runs out, of course, basically. Yeah, I think that concludes the testing. Hopefully that was in any way beneficial for you. The checkerboard has basically no place. Layering wood and stone is great, cheap fire protection. Stone is the best fire protector if we compare to the cost. But in performance, heavy armor is a pretty good fire protector. But best of all is air. Fire won't jump air gaps. And next best, or maybe even better, is water. Water will put out most of the flames. There we have it. Hope you enjoyed it. This has been your host, Gmodism, and we will say huge thanks to everyone in the ecclesiarchy and everyone that is supporting us over at Patreon in the commissioned officers in the ranks in the AOG. Anyways, see you next time. This is your host, signing out.